Okay, so the gray box on the top is the XRGB2, and the black box on the bottom is the XRGB-2plus. Now, if you're not familiar with the XRGBs, though a lot of people have at least heard of them by now, technically they're upscan converters, although what they really do is just double the lines, which allows you to double the resolution, and allows you to play, low resolution games on high resolutions, whether on a monitor or an HD TV, and still look beautiful. If you've ever hooked up an old classic console, like an NES or something, to an HD TV, you'll probably notice that it looks like shit. And that's because the TV just doesn't know how to upscale it properly. Well, what the XRGBs basically do is they double the lines, effectively, doubling the resolution. Like, for example, your typical low-res arcade game is 240p, or 320 by 240 resolution. So what the XRGB does is it doubles the amount of pixels to 640 by 480. So to the human eye, it looks pretty much identical and pixel perfect because it's exactly doubled. And then, of course, this brings the resolution up higher. So on an HD TV or computer monitor or whatever, you can play the game and it actually looks good and not like shit. Hence the reason. And the main secret to why these boxes work so well is because they take pure RGB. The better signal you start with, the better output you're going to get. So they basically take RGB in and VGA out. But, there's different models, but the 2 and the 2plus are, you'd assume the 2plus would be an upgraded 2, but they're very similar, but also very, very different. So I'm going to compare these real quickly. Now, if you look online, most people will tell you to buy the 2 for arcade PCBs and the 2plus for consoles, which is true in some ways, but still, there's some interesting things I've discovered. So anyway, a quick rundown. The XRGB2 will output in either 15 kilohertz or 31 kilohertz. 31 kilohertz is VGA, which is what the vast majority of people would use it for. The 15 kilohertz, you would need a 15 kilohertz monitor, which very few people, if you have one, you probably really don't even need an XRGB. But it has that mode mainly for old Japanese computers. Well, the XRGB-2plus outputs in either 31 kilohertz or 47 kilohertz, I think. Yeah. The difference, 47 kilohertz, of course, is 800 by 600 resolution. So it outputs higher, but the thing to note, though, is it's not, you're not doubling the pixels there. So it's not going to be pixel perfect. The only reason you'd really want to use that resolution is if you're using a display which cannot go as low as 31K, 640 by 480. Some HD TVs, some cheaper ones, will only go as low as 800 by 600, so in that case it's the only way to make it work. But if you want pixel perfect, you want to stick with an even ratio. So if you're looking at the front here, you'll notice they have the same basic buttons. They both have the game in port, which is for RGB, and that's all the 2 has on the front. The 2plus has it's a D terminal, which is for component, and some audio jacks to put the component in. On the back, I'm not going to be able to get a good picture of this, but they both have composite, which you really don't want to use unless you're forced to, but it is better than nothing. S-video, and they output with VGA, or the original 2 also will output in Japanese 15-pin RGB, which, unless you have something like an FM Towns monitor or an X68000 Sharp monitor, it's nothing you're ever going to use. They also both have a VGA pass-through in case you're going to hook this up between your computer and games, but it's kind of useless because it doesn't support progressive scan, and I believe it limits the resolution to only like 1024. Either way, don't worry about it. Don't use it. It's dumb. It's stupid. The 2plus has a remote, which is nice if you're sitting away from your TV, but the 2 doesn't. You have to do it all with the buttons. Alright, so Now, people again will tell you that the 2 is better for PCBs, and the main reason for that is it has a much higher tolerance to weird frequencies. Like, what I mean is, one thing you'll notice right here is there's this little switch here that says RGB PCB/STD or standard. What this does is it activates extra resistors that are meant for the stronger color output that a lot of PCBs have. Like, for example, I've got XRGB running here, and currently it's in PCB mode. Now, if I switch that to standard mode, yeah, the output is just way too strong, and it looks all white and crappy. So, in the 2, you can add those turn those extra resistors on to make it look beautiful. The 2plus does not have this feature. But besides that, the 2plus simply has, well, officially, the 2plus doesn't support our PCBs. It still works with a lot of them, but it doesn't actually support them anymore. So, like XRGB, a famously bitchy board, runs at a weird sync rate, meaning it will work with the 2, but it is out of the tolerance range of the 2plus. So, like, as you can see now, it's running beautifully on the 2. So, I'm just going to switch my 2 off, and unplug that, and plug it in the RGB cable, the super gun, into the 2. Okay, and now we're going to turn it on. And look what we got. No signal. That's because it cannot handle it. It's putting out a pure black screen. Yeah, totally black. The XRGB-2plus simply cannot handle XRGB's sync rate. So, you're probably thinking, well, okay, that settles it. For PCBs, the 2 is definitely better. Weirdly, though, it isn't always the case, which I'll show you. I'm going to put the camera down because I've got to switch the board, unfortunately. But, yeah. Alright, take that harness off with this. Yeah. Since, of course, the 2plus came later, it has, better features. Like, the 2 only has 1 scan line setting, while the 2plus has 4. But more so than that, it also has more adjustable options. Like, in the on the 2, you can only adjust the picture horizontally. If it's off vertically, you can't really do anything about it. I'm using a monitor, so I can easily change it through the monitor, but if you're just using a 2 on something like an HD TV, and let's say the picture is way too overscanned or way too high up, and you're only getting like half the picture, there's not much you can really do about it. It's just, it's just not going to work, pretty much. Meaning, it'll be up here, and then you'll have to go in your TV serviceman mode, which everybody hates. So, I'm going to boot up R-Type here, and just to show you something interesting, though. So we're going to start on the 2plus, and the picture's a little off, and I'm not going to adjust it due to time. But, alright, see, if you look at the bottom, you can see the beam. See, that shows up. So as you can see, it can run R-Type just fine. Now, see down here though, yeah, you've got the beam. Now, really quickly going to turn this off again, and I hope I have enough time to get this done. And I'm going to switch over to the 2, which, as you said, which I showed earlier, theoretically should be better. But, you see here, it's a little, but you see here, notice something looks weird already? Now this is a game where it's actually slightly, this is a game where you actually want to disable those extra resistors on the 2. Yeah. But notice what we're missing. The status bar. It's gone. Now currently running straight for the 2, and there's no status bar. The reason for this is that IRM games like to put their status bar at the very, I don't know, in a weird area of the video. And in the 2plus, there's an option called mask, which hides that. If you disable it, you can see it. However, on the 2, there is no way to disable that, meaning you will never get the R-type status bar on a 2, but you will on the 2plus. So in conclusion, the 2 can play more boards than the 2plus can because it has higher tolerance. However, it can't play certain boards like R-type perfectly because you can't see everything no matter what you do. So technically, having both of them is better than just having one, but unfortunately they're both very expensive. So if you're considering the purchase of one of these, take careful note of what games you actually want to play. And I hope this was helpful and useful.